Just going to test this to make sure everything's okay. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, it is, but I've got the wrong speaker on. Let's try that again now. I suppose it could be a little bit louder as well, but I can't really do much about that. So this will have to do. You'll have to turn up your speakers, I guess. So what I'm going to do today, if I can get my computer to work, okay, cool, good, is make just a very simple demonstration of maybe the idea as set forward by my brother is to have some kind of rapids, like water. So here's the rapids, and it's going down, so there's like kind of rocks at the side to denote that it's going down, and this kind of water is beautifully forming, and okay, all good. And then there are things going down the river, right? And there is also a boat, and the boat can move left and right. You can click on close proximity items and pick them up, and then you end up at the bottom of the river and whatever. But there are a couple of engineering tasks here, and I just thought they're cool to go over. I think I know how to do them. I think this won't take too long, but that's famous last words. It'll probably take like a million days. So having said that, that's what the plan is. I'm not going to do the whole lot of that. I don't care about that stuff. What I care about is teaching how to make a spline. So spline is something with a set of points, and they can even Bezier curve. So they can even do some beautiful curving. We'll forget about that for now. That just comes with the engine. So this spline, what you can do is you can like spawn an object here, and you can move it across the line with respect to time. So we'll do that. So we'll create like some kind of block, right? It doesn't matter what, because you just replace it in the end. I'll show that as well, I'm sure, for a bit of fun. But we just need a spawner that'll spawn it at this position and move it down the spline. And the spline is manually configured, so I'm going to tweak artistically to make it look like a river. I'm not, but the point is that, right? And then finally, this kind of movement characteristic of being in a boat. So what we'll do is we'll have a kind of rectangular or what's that? Whatever the rectangular cube thing is, and then we'll make it so that the boat cannot move more than D away from the spline on the local axis. So let's say if we twist this all around, here's our axis, right? And this is our boat, and it cannot move any more than D on this x-axis, for example, right? That'll allow us to move, and I think we'll make it gradually move either direction, so it won't just immediately like flick. We'll have some kind of proximity. Well, you know what? We won't even do that because that's just obvious. What we'll do is we'll just attach click events to objects that we spawn, and that's pretty much what I'm going to do. So if we start from scratch again, the first object we're going to want to create is a pickup. So let's imagine we're going to pick up I don't know. Well, let's have a bit of fun here. A bridge, which is Quixel's asset library, actually created some fruits. So let's go and grab a fruit that we can chuck down a river, and whatever, that'll do. So we go to 3D assets. Yeah, oh great, coconuts. So let's call this the coconut actor. But actually, what we'll do is we'll have a thing called um a I don't know well, just for sakes, what you'd want to do is think up some kind of generic name for these things. But I'm going to call this the spline interactive, no, spline pickup. No, we'll just, gosh, I don't know. Yeah, spline pickup actor. Fine, let's do that. Why not? And so I'm calling it something generic because this really might apply to coconuts, or maybe I want to chuck in another fruit at some point. So keeping it generic will avoid that confusion. This is the kind of point of this video, is just to go through this kind of thought process. So let's say we've got a spline pickup actor, and that will be a C++ class, right? But what we'll do is we'll make a blueprint version of it in the future. This will all be explained. And that blueprint version, you'll just drop in a thing called a static mesh, this 3D model. And that 3D model can then be changed to whatever, right? It could be a coconut, it could be a dead body. That's that. That's number one. That's what we're going to make number one. Number two, I need a way of spawning those bad boys, right? So we're going to create another kind of actor, and we'll call this the spline. We'll call this the spline pickup spawner actor. What it does is it spawns these items, so it sees some kind of way of knowing what to spawn, and then it will go ahead and spawn it, and then it needs to know where to spawn them as well, right? Once again, the kind of object part, the visual part of it is irrelevant to C++ code. So we'll create this in C++. We'll create this in C++. Now we've got a pickup actor. We've got a way of spawning it. Then we need maybe the kind of third thing, which would be the spline, right? So we want an actor that that kind of manages these kinds of things. So like the spawner actor and the pickup actors are all spawned into the river, right? So maybe we could just call this river, or yeah, let's call this river. So we'll call this the river actor. And maybe you're thinking, well, that's not very generic. Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. You could call it whatever you want. You could call it Bob. But I think this makes sense in our circumstance, because we are always going to be applying a river to it. So maybe the river kind of addresses the situation nicely. And on that river, we'll have a spline. And this spline is that kind of point-by-point thing that you can send things along. That's a lot of talking just for nothing. And then the final thing, I think, is we're going to need the boat, the character. So what I'll do is call this the main character. It is the main character, right? So this can take on any form. It could be a dead human, it could be a boat, it could be a spaceship going down the river. It doesn't matter, because we've just called it main character. It's just a generic name, right? And then later on, when we make the blueprint version of it, whatever that means, we'll drop in a static mesh that's like a boat, or in our case, it's going to be a rectangle. Yeah, and the important thing to note is that a character must be controlled by input from the controller, so that the controller input goes through into or gets received by a controller, right? Literally a controller. So that's a programming terminology. So we'll also have number 5. We're going to have a main player controller. You might even want to call this something like the river movement controller, or something very specific to the kind of game that you're going to play, like because you might have something like a menu controller, whereby you are still the kind of person issuing commands, but you are doing it on behalf of a menu. Or maybe a second game, we have the River game, that's the River player controller, and then we have, I don't know, a shoot 'em up game. Then you'd want a very different type of controller for that. Uh, one could imagine. So, but in this case, I think this covers our purpose. But the idea is to kind of generalize and, don't overthink it. No one gives a shit, but just to try to generalize a little bit. So that's that, and then of course we've got to kind of keep track of things happening in the game. There's various ways of doing that, but I know that the most important one for now is a game mode, because a game mode is required by a level to function. So um, you could do game state, player state, all these different classes can do very specific things, but also in the same kind of functional, technical reasoning, you could just use the game mode that can track this stuff. And because we need it, I think that's a good place to start and stop for this example. So we're also going to have a main game mode um, that yeah that we'll also create a blueprint version of. This will all make sense in a second. And then look, I think that's probably it. I don't care about saving at the moment, saving the game and saving scores and stuff, but one might want to put that stuff on the game instance, which is a kind of all-embracing class that doesn't die or doesn't get destroyed, uninitialized when a level is unloaded. It just remains as part of the kind of core things that are running when Unreal Engine is running. So given that, the 6 things to create, let's go ahead and start creating them. I've got Unreal Engine 5 running. I've gone to create a new project. I've clicked game. I've gone blank. I've gone C++. Sure, why not? Quality maximum, sure. I mean, these are things you can change after. Do you want some starter content? Not really. Do you want ray tracing? Not really. I could even go scalable, because, well, let's go maximum. It doesn't really matter. You can always change it after. And we're going to call this the river ride. Fine. Let's click create. So what I suppose now we'll do is we'll go to Visual Studio. I've got 2022 version of it. And we'll get ready to open this bad boy up in code. This might take a while. Ah, yes. Doing nothing whilst pretending to do something is great. So I'm 2 beers into to San Miguel, so I'm feeling floaty. I'm glad this is going really fast. This is great. You'll notice that which I forget that this happens, but it's actually opened Visual Studio 2019 up for me. There's a good reason for that, and that we should make note of it is because Unreal Engine 5 in its current form does not support Visual Studio 2022. One would assume that it's because it's a preview version of Visual Studio. It doesn't really matter for us, it all still works. So what I'm going to do is I'll keep that open, that's great. And you can see that it's kind of built this project for us. We've got the Unreal Engine project, and then this game project that we've given it a name, and then we've got this source folder, River Ride, which is the project again, and a bunch of files, one of which is very interesting, game mode. The others not so interesting at this moment in time. Anyway, that's all opened up. Well, I want to open this up in 2022, so let's go and do that. I'm going to go and open up a project solution. I'm going to go to our River Ride, and there's a solution file here, and we're going to open up that bad boy. Here we go. Let me just pin this as well. Not required here. So I think this is because it's made it for 2019, which is the Visual Studio version, compiler and all that stuff. I'm not entirely sure, but what I tend to do is just hit cancel. Yeah, it doesn't make any difference to us, at least as far as I know, and I can't bother to look into it. So here we are in 2022. Perfect. Okay, we've also got the editor that came up. Yeah, that's gonna be annoying. I've actually separated these different windows out. Let me just put these back up here. In fact, this one is not open by default, so I'll close that, and then the details panel will go down here. Yes, okay, cool. Right. So first things first, let's create a level. Now, there's one thing that gets me really about Unreal Engine is when you download something from the marketplace, all the files come in at the root level of your application. So what I want to do is distinguish the difference between everything I've downloaded in the marketplace and everything that I've created myself. So what I do is I just call a folder in here the actual game name, River Ride. I think that's what I called it, right? River Ride, great. So that's a good start, I think. I've done it many times before without doing that, and when it gets big, it gets complex. So the second one is I'm going to create a levels folder, and the reason for that is this level is not currently saved, and we will need to save it in some shape or form. Well, what we'll do is we'll just create a new level, and we'll call this the main level. Done. And if we go into it, it's a blank level and we're sweet. Every single time I come into the Unreal Engine, I want this level to be open for me rather than some default level. So I'm going to go to edit, project settings. I'm going to type in default level. No, I'm not. I'm going to type in default and I'm going to search chaotically. It says default maps, editor startup map. Well, I want the startup map to be the main level, and the game defaults map is going to be the main level. It just means that when we come into the editor, it will open up that level by default, and we don't have to faff. Great, done. I'm going to make a save. Good. Now you'll notice that currently Visual Studio 2019 or 22 here are not running the Unreal Engine, so that's cool because what we can do is edit code, use the editor separately, and then we can kind of mesh them together, sync them together, and we can still debug because we can attach to the actual running application and then debug as we wish. But for now, all is well. We've got a Visual Studio project, we've got our River Ride game, and we're going to start creating some classes. So what I do is always forget where the Create C++ button is. I think it's in File. No, maybe it's in Tools. Tools, okay, Tools it is. New C++ class. Well, we'll go back to our little diagram, and it says I want a spline pickup actor. Cool. Okay. Well, maybe we should call this the RiverPickupActor. I think that's a much better name. So let's do that. I'm just making these decisions up in my head. It's because I'm seeing a bigger picture than maybe you are. But that's fine. Let's just go with the flow. RiverPickupActor sounds good, and we'll call this the RiverPickupSpawnerActor. So going back, RiverPickupActor, C++. So it's going to be an actor. I'm going to go next. I'm going to call this the RiverPickupActor. It's going to be. See, I never quite understood this, but I know that if you don't click anything, it doesn't create the public and private folders. We'll see what that means in a second. So I tend to go for public. The difference between them is very interesting. Games are made up of modules, and these modules are like portions of code that represent very specific things, right? And if you make a module, but if you click this private button, it creates a folder called private, and all of your classes go in to that private folder. And what it means is that other modules that may require access to this code cannot access that code. Whereas when you put it in the public folder, it can. So maybe as default, you should be setting this to private. But I think it's such a nuanced detail here, and maybe a bit technical, so we'll just go for public right now. It's just such an abstract thing in our heads at the moment. So let's go for public. We give it a name, and here's another thing I like to do. is show you the wrong folder. First of all, that's always a good thing. If I go to RiverRide, source, RiverRide, you can see here there's no folders in here. This is really annoying, but what I do, and I think I'm doing this wrong basically, but anyway, it says here where it's going to put this. So it says RiverRide source, RiverRide, RiverRide source, RiverRide, but then it's created this new folder for me. This is what I mean by this. If I go click new folder and create the public folder for myself, and inside there I create a new folder called actors, then at least I can organize it myself. I wish it would do that for me, but now I can select that one instead, select folder, and then we're going to go and create our class. So now instead of that class going into the root folder of the public folder, it goes into the actors folder and a little bit more organization. So now it's brought me into Visual Studio 2019. I'm not so interested in that, but hey, just for fun, I'm going to click reload all. And you'll notice that it didn't close the editor. That's because the Visual Studio is not connected to the editor. It's not running from Visual Studio, so we can refresh the project files and solution files. Cool. Let me go back over to 2022, which is the one I care about, and I'm going to hit reload all. So it's going to reload the project into Visual Studio. Takes a little while. There you go. I'm going to expand down, source, RiverRide, and look at this. We've got our public folder with an actors folder, and we've got a private folder with our actors folder. One thing to note, the C++ file is kind of the running code, so the game will run through the C++ code to do actions, make changes in the game. Whereas the header file, it represents like a list of, it's like a contract, like my RiverPickupActor has this property, has that property, blah, blah, blah. And the reason it's put into the public folder is that's a good file to share with other modules. Like the modules don't need to care about what the RiverPickupActor actually does. It just needs to know that I can use some of its methods and some of its properties. That's the kind of distinguishing factor between these two. Anyway, so that's all done. So now we need to make our next actor. So if I go back to Unreal Engine and I go, oh look, you can actually right click and go new C++ class. That's cool. So I'm going to go actor, next. I've got my public. It's all pre-ticked now. That's good. And I want to make a, what do we want? We want a RiverPickupSpawnerActor. Okay, let's do that. So go back to Unreal Engine. A RiverPickupSpawnerActor. And it's in our Riverside. Let's go. It's in our RiverRide folder, but it's not in our actors folder. So I want it to be an actors folder, so I select that and let it go haywire. Good, another one done. What's the next one we need? We need a RiverActor. All right, let's go and do that. Once it's finished, new C++ class. I'm just right-clicking, actor, and we're going to call this the RiverActor. It's public already, and I'm going to change my actors folder, change to my actors folder, create the class. Just double check everything. It's really a pain if you get this wrong, right? So always give it a good double check. I think it's just creating it now. What else do we have? The main character. Good. Yeah, I think actually just scanning the project here. I've gone to 2022. I reloaded all because I want the project to show the updated state. There isn't a character already defined, so we'll go and create that. But there is already a game mode defined. I mean, sure, we're going to ignore it, but you can also use that if you so wish. Anyway, we'll come to that in a second. The character, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into a characters folder. So I'm going to go new C++ class, a character. And the speciality or the awesomeness of the character is that it does come off of an actor. So it like inherits stuff from an actor, but it also adds the ability to be a pawn. A pawn is, I think it's something that could be moved without control, something like that. And then you've got on top of that the character, which has things like movement components and um, uh, like it basically has got just a bunch of methods that tend to be useful. I can't remember them off the top of my head. It's really annoying because it'd be nice to give you examples. But one example would be the movement component, which gives you the ability to move around. But also, here's another interesting one, is if you want to use the move to functions that come with Unreal Engine. These are really cool because they kind of work with AI to be able to kind of map paths automatically. If you use the character rather than pawn or actor, you get the ability to use the move to functions just out of the box. You don't have to add any of your own guff. So we're going to go for character here. And I'm going to call this main character. Once again, we're not in a great folder, so I'm going to go to my public folder. I'm going to create a new one. It's going to be called characters. It is an actor, but I think it's good enough to specify the difference here. We might have many characters, right? Select that folder, create the class. Fine, we will reload you. Give this some time to pick up the change as well. There it is. I'm going to reload this as well. So I think almost last but not least, yeah, we've got the character. Now we need the controller. So once again, just checking, there is no controller in here at the moment. So you know, there's our characters and actors, but we need the controller. So let's go and create one of those. Right click, new C++ class. The controller, once again, it just receives input, and then you issue out instructions to players, actors, pawns, characters. You know, it's the controller, it's the brain, I suppose. Next, it's public, great, and I'm going to call this the main player controller. Sure, and then I'm going to go create a nice folder called controllers. You don't have to do this step. It's just kind of nice to separate them out, I suppose. There might be some problems that it causes, but we can address them. It's fine. Reload or whatever. This is 2019. I don't really care what you're doing. Good. Okay, so now we're at the point where we already had that game mode, but I'm going to create one anyway, just so I get a bit of structure around my stuff. We could delete the other game mode that we're not going to use later. Let's go right click, new C++ class. I think there's one called game mode in it. Game mode base, that's the one. And then we call this the main, or the maybe the river game mode. Knock off that end word base. Go into here, and we'll go and create one called game modes. You see the structure, the folder structure I'm trying to keep is just very simple. Just, you know, if there's a kind of core concept behind the class, then I try and group it up, because those folders get big very quickly. So it's nice to keep them all together. Here's an example. One game, I've got an actors folder, but with a puzzles folder inside it. Actors that relate to puzzles, and I can kind of add hierarchy to them. But it's personal choice. You know, what's going to work for you and what's going to work for your team. Okay, cool. Everything's done. Everything's set out. Good. Now let's go and create blueprint versions of them. A C++ class, the way I feel about this is that it should deliver logic. It should be things that need a way of easily double checking other people's work. So when you make things called pull requests in Git, you can at least review the file and say, hey, this programmatically makes sense as a coder, and you can say approve, tick, you're allowed into the project. This sort of thing isn't so easy with blueprints. So I tried to pull all the logic out of the blueprint, and I leave blueprint stuff for purely graphical front-end view-based things. UI, not the logic behind the UI, but the actual UI, or the static meshes involved, or blah blah blah. And only when I need more control over the visual things would I at least put some underpinning for those things in C++, but then I would implement them in Blueprint. Okay, so with that being said, if I go back to my folder and I go create a new folder and call it Blueprints, we'll give it a capital B because I'm a bit of a stickler for that. Oh, are you going to let me? Interesting. Apparently that already exists. So here's an interesting thing I've never seen before. If I right click on this, I can go show in Explorer. And in here, it says that there's a capital B blueprints. There's not. I'm going to go ahead and assume that I can change that myself. Very interesting. Never had that problem before. Let's go see if I can. I don't know. I have no idea what happened there. Maybe because I made the lowercase and it doesn't care about capitals and lowercases. Maybe it thought that was the same folder and now I've renamed it. It lets me do it. I don't know. Anyway, blueprint, there it is. I wanted it to be blueprints. Hopefully that's updating my files. Yes, it is. And I'm going to delete that folder here. It's already deleted for me. Cool. So there's my two folders. And inside here, if I go blueprint class, right clicked, blueprint class, and I click on all classes, you can go and find my thing. So if I go search for the first one, the RiverPickupActor, if I go type that into the search here, RiverPickupActor, there it is. If I click that, and I'm going to call this the BP_RiverPickupActor. There it is. Next one. Oh, actually, even better, let's create a new folder and call that actors. And we'll drop that bad boy in there. Move here. Here's one thing to note. I'm not sure it really works for this stuff. No, it doesn't. Ignore me. That's fine for now. Good. Actors. Okay, cool. Next actor was what? The RiverPickupSpawnerActor. So if I go into my actors folder, I go blueprint class, and I go RiverPickupSpawnerActor. BP_RiverPickupSpawnerActor. Or Actor. Actor. There you go. Good. What else do we have? We've got the main character, so let's go and create a folder for that. We'll call this characters. I'm just right clicking to do this. I'm going to go create a new blueprint. We're going to call this the main character. That's what we called it. Main player character. Yeah. Well, main player character. Maybe that's more suitable. But too late now. Good. Main character. And then we've got what? A main player controller. So let's go and do that. We'll come back out of here. We'll go controllers. And then we'll go and create a new blueprint. And then controller. No, main player controller. There it is. So these are we're making classes. BP main player. We're making blueprints based off of the kind of underlying class, C++ class, which is super duper cool. What I'm going to do is save all now. Good. Okay. So there's probably actually, you know what? We've got the game mode as well. Let's just do that, and then I'll make one note. Main game mode. Good. So we're going to go back here. I'm going to go new folder, game modes, something like that, and then we'll go create that. And it's main game or River Game Mode. What did I call it? River Game Mode. There it is. I think. What did I call it? Yeah, River Game Mode, because it's the game mode for the river level, right? Or the river mode of gaming. So that's why I've called it that. BP River Game Mode. I mean, if it was, I don't know, you wanted to have a first-person shooter, you might say it's the first-person shooter game mode, or maybe you have a first-person shooter with a specific kind of way of playing, like, I don't know, the deathmatch, right? You'd have the first-person deathmatch game mode, and these are the kind of separations I'm making inside my head. Yeah, sure. Right. Having said all that, let's now think about not losing what we've done, and I use Git to do that. So install Git. Just download it, install it, and what you want to do is then go and search for. Let me open this up in Firefox before Google Chrome juices me. So let's search for. Let's pull this away from this stuff. Unreal Engine Git Ignore File. I'll explain this in a second, but essentially, everyone seems to have one, and you just click on one. One of them will do. The Git Ignore for Unreal Engine Git Ignore fine, that sounds good to me. Just copy this stuff in basically. Get all that. So here's the thing, right? I want to use Git. So I go back to my Unreal projects. I've got my River Ride here. This whole folder I want to be backing up, right? So what I can do is I can click there and type cmd. Brings up the command line, lovely jubbly. And if you do git init, it's going to initialize Git. What it does is actually just adds. If we give it some time, do something. There it is. It adds a Git folder, right? So it's kind of storing all of its juice in there. Cool. So the other thing is, if I were now to say, well, I want to back everything up, let's just go and take a look at what we're going to back up by doing git status. There's a lot of folders here that it's gonna kind of keep in its belly, and then we have to kind of upload to GitHub or a new DevOps or whatever we're going to use. That's a lot of bulk. But we only really care about the stuff that we've done as individuals in preparation. And also, we only care about things that we need to give to other people if they want to also work on our code base. Some of these folders are not part of that set of criteria. For example, I have to remember here, the intermediate folder and the binaries folder are things that are compiled and built onto your computer as you build them. So we don't really need them to be stored. They can be built by the user as they download it to their computer. So this is what a git ignore file does. It just ignores a couple of things, and in this case quite a lot of things. The way I create a git ignore, you'll just notice if I try and go and create, at least back in the day, if I went to go new, I can't create anything without a file name. But a git ignore file has no file name, so we have to be a bit clever here. If you go back to our command prompt, we can do copy null dot git ignore. I don't quite understand why that is the command, and maybe someone can correct me, but this creates a file called git ignore. Done. So now if I go here, there it is. Cool. It's got no name, and that's why that was a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag this into Visual Studio, or you can open it up in Notepad. I mean, let's just open it up in Notepad. Well, in my case, I think I don't know what we got here. Notepad, that sounds good. Okay. And we're just going to drop in all that stuff that we've just found randomly on the internet and save. You'll notice in here, if we've got something that's worth actually having, there's a binary files here, and it's just ignoring binaries. The folder just ignored. Build, ignored. This is what these lines mean. Just ignore this folder and anything in it, right? Intermediate, all those things that I just said are being ignored. Cool, so we come out of that, and now if we go and do this git status, if I just press up on the keyboard, it lets me go up through my commands again and hit that. You can now see there's quite a limited amount of folders that are going to be stored. Awesome, I like it. So now let's go and commit. Let's stage those changes up to say, hey, those are the changes we care about if we're going to back it up. So we go git add, and I think it's a capital A. Anyway, just copy that command, git add -a, hit enter. Now they're staged. They're presented on the stage. They're like, these are the ones we care about. So if we do git status, you'll notice that they've all gone green. In fact, it's got a list of all the files that we care about. It's got those CPP files for RiverActor, the header files for RiverActor, PickupActor, all that stuff. It's got a few of the kind of core parts, necessities for others to download and build. Like this one, for example, like the configurations, and the U project file, the Unreal Engine project file. All those things are required by Unreal Engine to get going, right? So we've staged them, they're on the stage. Now we go, all right. So on the stage, we are going to say, these are the ones we like, and then send them off to do their bidding, whatever. So git commit -m for message or monkey, and then we say, I know, first commit, or I did some stuff. Done. Now we've got a save point. That's really cool. If I do git status now, it says nothing to commit, working tree clean. So that means we've made a save and everything's good. Just to visualize that, if I go back to Visual Studio now, and go to the Git Changes thing up here, or Git here, you can go to local repositories and open local repository. And if I go to my Riverride and select this folder, the one with the Git folder in it, you'll see it's kind of linked up to Git. And if I go and kind of click over here and go, that's not what I wanted. If I go Git, view branch history, we'll see that my first commit is here. And if I double click on that, it will tell me exactly what's being saved, which is kind of cool, right? That's the visualization of it. So let's go and close all of this crap and let's start doing some code. So I think, or at least some visualization first. So first of all, we need to get this level looking a bit more sweet. It's a bit confusing at the moment. So if I go to Window, yours might already be open here, but I'm going to need the world outliner. Let me just drag this up here. I'm going to drag my settings on here. I think this is pretty much the default layout. My world outliner has nothing in it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call this main level. The reason I do this is because if you create other levels and you try and merge them in, all of the parts of that level kind of get put into the root of this whole level structure. It's very difficult to understand where things have come from. At least at entry level, it's annoying. There are techniques of doing it, like showing levels in colors and all this stuff, and hiding and showing bits, but I think it's a great way of doing this. So I create a nice little folder here. Maybe people will disagree with me, it's fine. I'd love to be taught in a better way. And then I will go and I'll go and drop in a light, right? So if I go up here, place actors, if you can't see it, it's under create place actors panel. It pulls out this thing, and if I go light, if you scroll down, there is a directional light, which is what we want. So we can literally drag the directional light into the scene. Awesome. And another thing I do is if I go down to the transforms, I just set it all to the origin 0, 0, 0. Rotation's fine because it's kind of the direction of the sunlight that it's posed as a good starting ground. It's got this weird scale of 2.5. We'll leave that. Don't want to touch it. And if I right click and zoom around with the normal WSD keys, you can kind of see it here in the view. Awesome. So now I want to put like a plane in here, just so we can kind of get to grips with what's in the actual level. So if I click plane, drag it in, just recenter everything to 0, 0, 0. And what I can do is I can press this button here, which is scale, or I think it's E. Well, no, R. Sorry, R. And here's the thing, right? You can stretch the whole thing because it's, you know, all three of these yellow bars. If I do this one, it goes like that. If I do that one, it goes like that. If I do a little bit in the middle, it'll scale both axes. But actually, I can scale the whole thing because it is a plane. It's only kind of almost, you know, just 2 dimensions. So it is scaled, right? Good so far. And the reason we can see it is because of this light. If I were to hide this light here, or at least don't see it, then it will go black. But we want it to go like that. Last thing I like to put in just for test purposes, this BP sky sphere, which seems to come with Unreal Engine. If you drop it in, it gives you a nice starting ground, a little bit of background to see what's going on. And I'll just once again I'll just set that to 0, just so I know where it all is. I'm going to save this, and we are good to go. So the next one I think we need to drop in is a pickup actor, right? So let's just take a look at what this looks like at the moment. Nothing. It looks like nothing at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our blueprint, not the C++ code, because we're going to be doing like a bit of design here. And we go over here to the components panel. We're going to add a static mesh. There it is, static mesh. And it, yeah, that's it, right? And we can call it something. We can say this is the the coconut mesh, or the static mesh, right? Or the model, or whatever you want to call it. I think static mesh makes sense to me, at least, because I'm an Unreal Engine developer. But if you, well, I say that as if I really know what I'm doing. I don't, but I've done it for a long time. You can go and select static meshes here, and they would list there if you had any. Okay, well, we don't. That's fine though. Let's go and create a static mesh. Okay, so I'm going to use Blender for this. So if you go to to Blender. Just download it, open it up, and we'll start with a fresh blankie. What we want to do here is just understand some of the tools that are available to us for Unreal Engine and Blender, because they make our lives a little bit easier. If I go to Unreal Engine, Blender, I think it's called Send to Unreal. So I just put that into Google and I press enter, and it gives me a bit of information here. If I scroll down, there you go, UnrealEngine.com, download our new Blender add-ons. Okay, cool, sounds good. Let's click on that. And if you read this gubbins, there is a button here. It says, to download our new free add-ons, log into your Epic Games account and connect it with your GitHub account. Go and get a GitHub account, all is well and good, and then we're in, right? So if I scroll down here, it's got, keep scrolling. Well, actually, that is not what I wanted. If I no, that's it. Sorry. Download, sorry, connect up to GitHub, right? Connect your account. Basically follow this guide, but essentially, for more in-depth information on the topic, check out our Inside Unreal live streams. Then access the add-ons and documentation here. So if I go and click on this one here, I mean, you could just read it, but essentially there it is. There's the Epic Games repository in Git Hub, and then the Blender tools. If we go down here, download the zip on the release with the latest edition version number. Download that. Follow the documentation. Basically, it just tells you how to install that plugin in Unreal, and essentially you'll end up with this pipeline tab. Just if you don't know, preferences, add-ons, you'd go and install by pointing to the file. It would install this Unreal plugin. There it is. Okay, all good so far. Then in this settings, if you go to add-ons and go to this Unreal thing, what you can do is go to paths, and you can actually define where in Unreal Engine all of your models that you draft in Blender or create in Blender will be dropped. So in this case, I'm going to change this to my river ride. I'll put this into the meshes folder, a meshes folder. It's not been made yet, but I'll just do that, and I'm gonna put this under my Blender folder. I think that makes sense. Same here. If you had any animations, just change it now, right? But you could also get rid of this specific river ride thing. But I'm gonna just say now it gets confusing again, because meshes from Marketplace get dropped into the root folder of your Unreal Engine project, and so it all kind of gets conglomerated together. It's a bit annoying. So I do recommend putting a naming convention here at least. Anyway, that's all done. It saves automatically, so we can close this. What's our pickup going to be? Well, cube sounds good enough. Let's just do that, right? Let's just, yeah, a cube will be fine. Okay. So just a few things here. If you press on it, left click for me at least, and you go tab, and then you go double A to unselect, A to select all. That's why it was selected. What you then do is you go U, and you can go. You know what? Actually, let me just show you one thing. If I just drag up from this tiny little corner here, if you just drag up, no, don't do that. Just drag up tiny little corner like that. Then you can kind of choose from a various amount of things here, and one of them is called UV editor. Okay, and the UV editor is I suppose in a way it simply instructs the graphics card on how to assemble points onto or at least textures onto the vertices or planes of your object. If you don't know what that means, I don't know either, but essentially we kind of think of it as you're kind of slicing up like a paper object or cardboard object that you've created into a way that you can unfold it so it's all flat, and then the kind of graphics card can pump in its textures. If you need proper explanations, just Google it. Honestly, it's fine. But that will do for intuitive reasons. Okay, so now what we do is we select all, we go U, and we go Smart UV Project. Okay, this won't work for everything, and also it makes a little bit of a crappy unwrap, but I think it'll do for now, right? So we've done that. Let's imagine that's all good. And let's just add a material as well, just for good keepings. We go down here. This is the material tab here. Let's call this, I don't know, River Pickup. Okay. And then inside here, we're gonna click Use Nodes. It needs to be blue. So now we can adjust all these kind of colors and things as well. I just thought I'd just take the time to show you another one. If you click on this little tiny corner bit again, drag over, and then just expand down here and go to your shader editor, you'll actually see this kind of graphing tool. You can navigate with middle click. You can kind of drag around and then zoom in. I just wanted to show you that this is the thing you can kind of pull out and drag things in. For now, we're just going to choose a color. We'll call it. We'll choose red, I guess. Well, maybe orange. Orange is good. Okay. And now, if I go back into yes, that's right. So if I go back into the view here with my clicks and go Z, and if I then press Material Preview, you'll see that it's orange. So it's picked up our change there, right? So now we have a material. Unreal Engine will totally understand this, and we are good to go. What we can do now is just save this. Let me just go and save this in my. So I like to do this is to go to my actual project folder, and then I'll go to I'll create a new folder called like assets or something. Emphasis on ass, maybe Blender, and then we'll call this the River Pickup, right? River Pickup. Save as. Now we're going to use that lovely Send to Unreal plugin that we downloaded earlier. If we click on Pipelines, we go Export, and we click Send to Unreal. Here's just a note: Unreal Engine has to be open, and if you have two versions of Unreal Engine open, it might absolutely fuck you over. So just make sure you've got one, and make sure it's open. If you click Send to Unreal, it says you do not have the correct objects. I forgot this, but now I remember. You do not have the correct object under the mesh or rig collections, or your rig does not have any actions to export. Okay, what it's meaning is this pipeline also comes with a default set of collections in Blender, and the ones that export to Unreal Engine are these specific ones here. So what you have to do is just drag the mesh that you want, drag it into the mesh. Now if we go and click that, in fact, always save. Export, send to Unreal, and it's taking a little while. Waiting. A little bit loading. It did say something. It had a little error. It said it couldn't find something. So this is always good. This is the fun part where things don't go as you plan. Let's just try that again. I didn't quite see the issue there. What was it saying? Could not find an open Unreal Editor instance. Okay. Well, what we'll do, given that that's a kind of wacky error, is I'm going to save everything. Just save all. What I'll do is I'll just close this down. It's a good way to show you another way into Unreal Engine Editor. So you could go back to Epic Games and then go to Library and launch it all and stuff. But instead of doing that, what you can also do is go to your code, and down here there's the U project. And if you right click on that and go open with, you can actually choose Unreal Engine default here. You can even set it as the default, which I like to do, and press OK. It says select the Unreal Engine version, 5 in this case. And then there it is. It's loading it, but you'll notice that it does not start the debugger, which is always a good thing. You'll also notice that as we wanted it to, it's loaded up our default map, which is good, main level. Let's give this a try again. Pipeline, export, send to Unreal. Are you going to work this time? Oh, no, okay. Well, let's just try and exit Blender and reopen it. This is a bit odd, I have to say. This is why we save. River Pickup, there we go. Pipeline, send to Unreal. Let's see if that works now. That is so strange. I know it works with UE5. What is happening here? Not quite sure actually. This definitely does work. Let's just go and check those preferences. I won't hold up on too much in this. It's completely irrelevant. I just wanted to show you the flow of Blender, but apparently this needs a bit of investigation. If I go to my center Unreal, preferences center Unreal, general, automatic create predefined paths. That is fine. Export. Yep, that's all the defaults, I think. I tell you what I'll do is I'll just undo it and then redo it. Let's see if that works. I don't know. Export center Unreal. I don't know what's happening. What basically generally what happens is that would send it here, and inside your River Ride folder there'd be a meshes folder, and then you would see your lovely cube, which would be a static mesh. I'll have to figure that one out. I don't know what's going wrong there. Irrelevant. Let's just go straight for the gubbins because I wanted to do that anyway. So there's also another really cool thing in Unreal Engine called the Quixel Bridge. And if you go to Content Quixel Bridge, you can kind of just look for things to drop into your scene. And if you go to 3D Assets, we'll go for that coconut. 3D Assets, I go coconut. There it is, and let's see. Yeah, I quite like this one. If you click on that, and you can select low, medium, or high quality. There's more detail about why you should pick things and how to kind of toggle things on and off. Let's just go for medium for now, I suppose. Yes, let's do that. Oh, let me sign in. I'll do this off screen. That may have been the problem with Blender, to be absolutely honest. That may have been the problem. Alright, we're in. So I've just signed in. It's going to connect me up, hopefully. And what you can do is, if you click on this, you can actually go somewhere. Where is it? Maybe you have to download it first. Let's click the download button, see what happens. Now you can add it. So now I click on add, and I don't know if you saw that, but just over here, the coconut is now made available to us. So here's the coconut. Here's a material for it. Yeah, material. There's the mesh, and there's some textures that are used in the material. Cool. Okay. And you'll notice, look, it dropped it into the outside folder. So as I say, it's nice to have your own folder because now they're all divided away from that. So if we go back into this actors, and we're going to go to the pickup actor, go to my static mesh, and I'm going to go and choose my nice coconut. Now if I go to viewport, you should be able to see the coconut here, and I can compile and I can save. And now in my scene I have a coconut and all is well in the world. I'm going to center that on 0, 0, 0, and I'm just going to put it up a little bit actually. Okay, so one more thing we need is a camera. So if you go camera up in the placement, just drop it into the world, set it to 0, 0, 0. What you can do is just use these arrows from this one here, select and translate. If you just pull that up a little bit and back a little bit, then we can see that. And if we press play, you'll notice that we're not actually steered with that camera. So what we want to do is go into the camera, pull this up a little bit, and we can say, let's see, oh gosh, I can't remember what is it, auto play or something, auto activate. If you click on this, you can go player 0. I haven't done more than one player, so that is the way I do things at the moment. Now if I go play, you'll notice that I've been snapped into the view of the camera, I assume because I'm default player 0. Okay, good. Now there's a couple more things to do. I just wanted to get something in there. If you go to world settings, this is the most important thing. Now that we've created blueprint versions of our characters, controllers, and game modes and all that stuff, if you go here, this is asking for a game mode. So what we can do is we can go River Game Mode, and you can see this is our C++ version, but we want the blueprint version because we're going to edit it and craft it in Blueprint. So we want to use the blueprint version. And then when we do that, this expands for us. Now it says, what's the default pawn? Well, okay, our default pawn is going to be our main character, the blueprint version. And our player controller is going to be our blueprint version of the controller. And that's all she wrote for now. Last thing is, just to show you that those things are working, if I press play, we're still in the same scene, everything's fine, I can't do anything else. If I go to my Visual Studio and I go to my game mode, I think what's really cool is to be able to see something happen. So if I go to my, sorry, okay, I went to game mode C++, but what you can do is Control K then O. So hold Control, press K then O, and it will take you through to the header file. Or if you just go through to the public folder for your game mode, you can also get to your header file. Bit of code, so we're going to make a publicly accessible property or function, I suppose this is, and we're going to give this a constructor. So the constructor is always the name of the class, and it's just defined like that. It's very common across C#, TypeScript. Well, actually TypeScript are different, but yeah, it's just a very common way of doing this thing is having the same name. C# and Java, maybe, yeah, okay. Anyway, that's done. So now what we can do is just go and create the implementation for this constructor method. And by constructor, I mean it's the first thing that loads. It then runs through the code in the constructor. It's supposed to kind of initialize things ish. So what I can do is hold Control KO. Here we are. And to do this, it's the class name : scope to the constructor. It's a method, so I'm going to do little parameters. I'm going to give it a few pubes, these curly braces, and we've got our own constructor. And I did this not to put anything in here, but if you then click over here, you can set a breakpoint, and then if you go to debug and go attach to process, and what you can do, you might also need to do show process for all users, but it should be Unreal Engine, should be in here. There it is, Unreal Editor, and you go attach. Now, when this is grayed out, that means that it hasn't attached to the correct DLL that was generated for the game that is currently being played in the editor. And the way we can update that or sync the code with the editor is if you go through to the editor. This is where it doesn't work. Click many times. Here we go. There's a button down here, and it recompiles C++. And if you click that button, I believe it generates a new DLL file, which then the editor uses. I think that's right. And you'll notice that, look, our breakpoint actually turned on and ran it. Let me just continue. So I clicked on it to get rid of it. You can continue over here. And if I then go back into my Visual Studio and plop that back on, I just want to show you that it's now in red, right? That's great. So now if I go back into Unreal Engine, I press play, and you can see it's running the code. So we're good, we've done it, right? Let's untick that, and then press continue, and we're back into the game. And now we can merrily press and play, and it doesn't interrupt us. Bear with me, I just need to go and get some water. Sorry, my throat was kicking up a fuss. Okay, so the next thing is let's get that spawner in. So the spawner is going to create multiple items every, I don't know, n seconds at some kind of position. Okay, so let's do that. So if we go to actors and we go to the RiverPickupSpawnerActor, Now we can go into the blueprint and we can click on this button up here and we can do all this kind of funky stuff with graph and blueprint. But this is logic. We want the logic to be in C++ because it's easy to review, it's easy to make, well, my opinion is that it's easy to review, it's easy to maintain, it's faster as well, and I suppose it's kind of what the editor was designed to do, which is to do graphical stuff in Blueprint, although I'm happy to be corrected on that. So if I go to my code, and I can close some of these tools off, diagnostic tools, class view, I've got my Git Changes over here, we'll close that as well. Now we're in a nice little view here. Okay, so if we go to our spawner actor, the header first, we'll see a few methods that are already built for us. So publicly there is a constructor. Protected, which means only things that inherit from me can see this method or override it or add to it. That's what protected does. And public just means it's accessible from other classes. You know, if a class instantiates a version of this actor, then after it's instantiated, it can also access the public methods. It cannot access the protected methods unless it is inherited from that. Subtle C++ thing, but that's fine. It's also C#, Java, etc. TypeScript, all that stuff. Even Node.js now. Well, kind of. Okay, so what we wanted to do is when we begin play, we want it to create a coconut for us. Okay, so here's a method called beginPlay, and this beginPlay, you'll notice it has a virtual and an override. Virtual means that it can be overridden, so anything that inherits from me can have its own implementation of beginPlay. And the override means, oh, there was already one above me, so I am inheriting from something that has beginPlay, and so I want to override it. Well, that comes from the actor. The actor, if I were to press F12, it'll take me through to the actor. And if I then search with Control F, begin play, maybe even a bracket there, and I just kind of go through my press enter a few times, you'll get to this protected method called begin play. Overridable native event for when play begins for this actor. If you could not get through to this code, which is totally possible, if you go to Epic Games Launcher, and then you go to your library, and if you just click on this little option here and go options, and you just have to tick editor symbols for debugging, just tick that. Only 40 gigabytes to download. Anyway, that'll make you gold. Where the hell is my? There it is. Okay, cool. So here's our method, and we're going to override it. There it is. And now if I go Control K O, it'll take me through to the C++ class where we can implement it. You'll notice that it's got a super : begin play. Well, if I didn't have that, it would not run any of Unreal Engine's code that they've prepared for us. So they do a lot of important, crucial stuff when begin play occurs. And the way we can make sure that all that stuff that they've coded actually happens is to run this method. So whenever you override Unreal Engine methods, be really careful to include that, otherwise you'll probably crash your editor, though it does give you warnings, at least nowadays, sometimes. So if you press enter underneath this, well, we want to know how many it should spawn and how often it should spawn. Well, let's just for the sake of it, we'll just do a number, and then we'll spawn that number amount. So how do we spawn actors? Good question, can't remember. So let's, I think it's called spawn actors, something like that. But what we can do is we can just go to Google, right? So you go Unreal Engine, spawn actor, C++. That's what I normally do. Spawning actors, Unreal Engine 4 documentation, 4, 5, who cares, all the same. It says the process of creating a new instance of an actor is known as spawning. Spawning of actors is performed using the UWorld spawn actor. Okay, that's interesting. What that says to me is that you need, well, a little confusing for me because I actually always think that this is a static class. Uh, anyways, just going ahead, there is a way of getting the current world that you've been entered into, and that is with the command get world. And if you type it, it actually comes up as a little selection here. Enter, open bracket, close bracket. And you'll also note that this is actually on the actor. So we're inheriting from something that has get world, and then we're just accessing it. Good, okay, get world. And on this, if we go through to, it's called a pointer to the method, and we want to spawn actor. And there it is, spawn actor. And if I open the brackets, it gives me a little visualization of the signature of that method. This signature says I want to have a spawn parameter, which is of this type, f_actor spawn parameters, and this means a reference to the spawn parameter. Okay, cool, good for you. So let's go f_actor spawn parameter. Oh, actually, you know what? There's a couple of overrides as well. Let's just click this little button and go through them. This one says, what type of class do I want to spawn? What's the transform for it? And are there any spawn parameters? Okay, let's keep going. There's also one, what type of class do you want to spawn? And then there's where do you want to spawn it? Rotation, and then some spawn parameters. Okay. Keep going through. Transform, location, rotation, spawn parameters, just the spawn parameters. So there's there's often in Unreal Engine lots of overrides of this method. That just means there's multiple methods with slightly different signatures, and each one has its own implementing code. So we're going to try and choose one that makes sense to us. Well, I want to spawn it at a location with a rotation. Not so fussed about that, but that's good. And then we'll figure out what this does. So starting with the location, let's just give it a location first. Let's go. I want a location equal to what? Well, if we go back to this and press Control, Shift, and Space, and it says, what was this again? Let's say it's version 2, for example. It says it wants an F vector. So location is the name. We could call this Bob, but we won't. And you go F vector. Now that's the type of the variable. It's not glowing nicely yet, but it will soon. And then the F vector just needs to be an F vector. And F vector actually has some parameters in it. Here it is, X, Y, and Z. Okay, well let's just put that all at 0 for now. Where F stands for float, which is a data type in C++. Just copy that one, and you can paste this into here. But we'll notice that actually the first variable we wanted was the type of class, but also there's this kind of like left and right sharp bracket here. I think they're called chevrons. That's right, yeah. What it says is I'm going to spawn an actor, and then you can supply that method with a type, right? And if I go through to that spawn actor by pressing F12, there's quite a few implementations of this. These are all those overrides that we were looking at. These are Unreal Engine's implementations of those methods. If I go through to the third one here, you can see that T actually gets passed. It passes in this that type : static class. That's interesting. What does that mean? Well, I can either do it like this. I can go, hey, I want a RiverActor where a RiverActor is the actual RiverActor that we have, right? We're going to spawn a RiverActor. Here it is. When we called it RiverActor, it puts this little A on the beginning of the name of the class, and that's like a convention thing. So that's why I've referred to that here. And it can't find it. It's just like red and ugly. What you can do is right click and go quick action. Nope, right click. Maybe do that. Generate graph of include files. I'm not sure that's actually going to do anything. No, okay, well, whatever. So what you have to do is include it so that C++ knows what the hell you're talking about. So if you go up to the top here, in the C++ file, include, and we've got an actors folder, and if we let type ahead come in, it will help us out here with the name. You can always tell if Visual Studio is doing something because this kind of flashes. Anyway, here it is, and it's given us type ahead, and I want that one. So now when I do that, this should now start to glow a little bit happier. There you go. So we could either define the static class here like that, or we could just say, hey, this spawn actor already has a method that's going to do that for us. We just have to supply the type. That is how you do that. It's called, in C# it's called generic. In C++ it's called templates, C++ templates. I think that's all. That's all the names I know about it. So now we can delete that. And if I go and Control Shift Space, it's now kind of saying, oh no, not quite yet. Well, anyway, so let's go and try and find that again. So this is the one we're actually using, the 6 out of 7. We don't have to select this. This is just giving us a little documentation of it. And it wants a location, it wants a rotation. So let's go and make a rotation. Go back to this. Was it 6? It needs an F rotator. Let's do that. So go F rotator rotation equals F rotator, open bracket, and it will give us some type ahead, but pitch your roll. Those are the 3 types we need to pass in. So pitch, I don't know, 0, 0, 0, whatever, don't care. Pass that one in. What's the next parameter it needs? We're going to go back to 6, and it wants now an F actor spawn parameters. So let's go and make one of those, F actor spawn parameters. Spawn parameters is the name of the variable. We could call it Bob, but we won't because we're not crazy. And so this is yeah, C++ thing. Probably go ahead with it. I think it's called it's kind of declared in the stack in memory. It's not an instance or thing that you can instance per se, which uses heap memory. Anyway, facts aside, this is how you do this. So you can just kind of press dot, and then you can start filling in the parts of this spawn parameters. So I don't know, if we want to say the owner of something is this, then we do that, and then what something else we might. Oh, let me just go back to here, semicolon at the end. Then maybe we want to do something else. In the way it's going to spawn, I think Unreal Engine just probably uses as instructions on what to do. Let's see, override, whatever these things, and you can kind of just fill them out one by one. Actually, we just don't want any at the moment. So I'm going to go spawn parameters, we pass that in, and we finish this line off with our semicolon. So now what we're saying is, in the world that we are, spawn a river actor and give it location, rotation, and the spawn parameters. All well and good, but this is going to spawn a class version of our river actor. This is a C++ class. What we want to do is to make it spawn a blueprint version of our class, because then we can keep all the kind of beautiful 3D graphics that we've crafted in Unreal Engine Editor, and then just spawn it as that, right? So what we need to do is tell the spawn actor what type it's going to spawn. And what we can do, I believe, is if we go back over here, Control KO to get to the header file, we can make a public variable. And this is really cool macro property that Unreal Engine created. Google it, UPROPERTY. You tell it where you want this property to be visible, if you can edit it, what categories. It's got all these different things. These are the ones I use mostly often. So it's a public variable, UPROPERTY. It's going to be blueprint. It's going to be read and writable. It's going to be edit anywhere, not just visible anywhere. And we'll give it a nice category of custom. So it's all kind of grouped in the details panel under the custom heading, and nice and easy to find. Maybe you want to do as custom, because then it's alphabetically at the top. Anyway, And this will be a river actor. Now we've got this problem again. It doesn't know what a river actor is at this point. So if we go back over Control KO to our C++ file, we said what it was here, but if we because we now need it in the header, if we grab this out, go back to our header and plop it in here, then it will know what this is now. One thing I just wanted to note, this has to go above this line here. This is automatically generated by Unreal Engine and is used in its reflection stuff, whatever that means. So there we are. And what we want to do is have I think it's called a T subclass of, or something like that, of this type. So let me, these are things by the way, these are things I've just learned over time. They are a little bit difficult to look up, but after you kind of Google a bit more, then they become apparent and you just get them in your head, right? So subclass of, it says, is a template class that provides uClass type safety. Well, you remember that our method that we're going to use required, if I can get the type heading, it's just working. Let me just let it do its thing. IntelliSense. Okay, you'll notice that it says uClass here. I don't know if that's specifically what it means, but I know how this works, so I'm gonna lie and say that's what that means. For instance, let's imagine that you are creating a projectile class that allows the designer to specify the damage type. You could just create a uProperty of type uClass and hope the designer always assigns a class derived from the uDamage type. Or you could use the T subclass of template to enforce the choice. Right, let's do it then. So if I go here, there's our T subclass, and we're going to call this the RiverActor template or type. Template. Yeah, template type. Good. So that's the variable name. That's the type of it. This is once again, this is a generic or a template class that when you give it the type, it'll do stuff with it. Anyway, copy of that, Control KO to go back to the C++, and then we're going to we're going to need to tell it what it should. But basically, we just want to pass it in as the first parameter because we need to tell it to create the blueprint version rather than the C++ version that we created. And hopefully, this is all good. If I go back here, the in class is that. Maybe that doesn't work. We'll see. Let's give it a compile. There are other things we can do if this doesn't work, but I think that's what we wanted. And there's one more thing. This needs to be configured in the editor, right? And if you hadn't configured it, it would try to use this and it would be empty. And I think it throws an error. So we want to do a little check to make sure that the template was ever defined. Like that, if statement. And also, if you haven't defined it and we're trying to run the game, we'll be a bit like confused at why it hasn't come up. So we want to do a little log to tell us what's happening. So if I go to Unreal Engine and Unreal Engine log, I think it's called. There you go, logging with UE log. That sounds good. We'll go here. Just copy that line, your code, enter a line using this format. Okay, we will. So otherwise, just log something. Warning, and we could say the begin play was called, and RiverActor template is null. Please define the property in the Unreal Engine editor. Something like that. You could call it, you could say Bob if you want, but that's not going to help. So now we've done that, what we need to do is kind of sync up the editor with the code that we've just done. And I always like to do this. I put a little breakpoint there. I go back to my editor, maybe minimize this and click that little compile button. And hopefully at some point this will go red as it clicks in the new DLL and they both are synced and match. There you go, it's clicked it in. We've got no compilation errors, that's always a good sign. not really. Now we go and play. It didn't work. And that's because I'm an idiot. That's number one. We actually need to put the spawner actor into our game. So what we can do is go back into our game. Here's our spawner actor, and what we'll do is we'll just pull it in, and as always, just set it to 0 on the transform so we know where it is. Good. I'm gonna create that folder again. It seems to have dropped out. I think it's because we had nothing in it before we saved. We moved out, and then it deletes anything that doesn't have something in it. So if I save, it should keep it now. Now we've got our spawner actor. Now we press play. It should breakpoint, and it has. And it says this is null. So if I continue, it should go to basically ignore this. This is saying that we've made edits. Do you want to continue editing, or do you want to ignore the fact that we edited it? Fine. So we did that, but now where did that message go? Well, if you go to, let's see, window, I think it's called output log, and you can see here there's a warning, and then it says the RiverActor template is null, please define the property in the UE editor. Well, what that means, if I go to the content browser, now go to my PickupSpawnerActor, stop the game. There's a stop button here, there's a stop button in the blueprints as well. If I click on this absolute top level, you'll notice there's a new category called custom. It might be at the bottom, it might be at the top, goodness knows where it goes. And what you can do is click on it, and you can actually now say, not that, that's not what we want. But you see, it's not listing all actors, it's just listing RiverActor. But of course, that's a C++ version of the RiverActor, and we don't want to spawn the C++ version because we'll lose all the 3D mesh and stuff that we've prepped here with the coconut and stuff. So how do you do that? I can't quite remember. That's really annoying. Actually, maybe it's a little bit of learning for me now because I can't remember these things. Maybe there's... Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, so there is a template property on the spawn parameters. That's interesting. So if I do that, now I wonder what type this takes, and I can go find out. So I click on that and I go F12, and it takes me through to it. It needs a pointer to an actor. Okay, good. Well, just defining a type is not going to give us an actor pointer at the very least. It's going to give us the wrong thing. So actually, what we could do is remove this T subclass of, and then we could put a pointer sign here. So this now becomes an actual instance of that, and I still don't think that's quite what we want. Okay, so when in doubt, just Google it. So Unreal Engine property to select what type of blueprint to spawn C++. Let's see, how to spawn a blueprint actor in C++. That sounds awesome. If we click on that, I'm trying to spawn a blueprinted object in my game and I can't seem to get this to work. Well, I suppose I guess I got the break I needed while waiting for help. I have the interesting item class with a few things in the editor I dropped. Not helpful. So it does say T class or subclass of. Let's see. I have the majority of my item in C++. In my item class header, I made a pointer to hold the blueprinted class name. Then in the constructor of the item, I grab the class of the blueprint and assign it to my blueprint variable. Let's see what that means. My blueprint variable equals that. Then when I want to spawn this later, as long as I have the value from blueprint, I can spawn in the game like so. Instigator this. spawn actor of that type. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Right, that was a big mistake. Yep, okay, cool. So yeah, it is saying that my item blueprint was equal to the object and item blueprint here is spawned here as an object finder. But we surely don't need to do that. T subclass of should do it. Okay, let's try again. I think this is addressed somewhere else, I'm sure. So I want to spawn a blueprint version. No, select blueprint or property to store blueprint type Unreal Engine. I tell you what, let's just do this pointer. I don't think that's right, but I think T subclass was right. Let's just give this a try though. Why not, right? So then this is fine. So what I've done is I've just changed this over to a pointer, and everything actually remains the same. We're just checking if the pointer has actually got an object in it. I don't think this is right, but if I go back to Unreal Engine and I click on my compile button, we can see the change come through pretty quick. I just can't remember how to do this. So now it's updated. If I go and double click on this, and I can go select, it's still giving me only the C++ class, which is not what I want. So if I go and click on this and browse, maybe if I click over here and then click browse, it doesn't take me through to that item, right? Whereas I think T subclass of should, and I wonder if, let me just go through to this method. I wonder if it needs a pointer. It shouldn't need that. So yeah, actually maybe I didn't make a blueprint version of this one. Let me just check that. I think I did. Yeah, BP River Actor, and it's based off of its native parent class is the RiverPickupActor. RiverPickupActor. Oh, my apologies. Well, that's a bit confusing, isn't it? Yeah, I've actually confused myself with my own naming terminology there. So I was right with the, goodness me, I was right with T subclass of, but this is the wrong actor. My apologies. We want the pickup actor. So there you go. That's why you've got to be really careful with the naming. So I just changed that, and I'm going to put that down here. And everything was tickety boo before. So let's go. Just make sure this variable name is a bit better. So RiverPickupActor template. And we'll go and change that in here. This is Control KO to always go back, and I'm going to change this. This is the type that it's going to go and spawn. Good. Let's give this another try. Go back to Unreal Engine, go and compile. And hopefully this time we'll have a better success. Oh, we've got to compile. We can go show log. We just take a look. It says class RiverPickupActor is missing a prefix, expecting a RiverPickupActor. Good, it's corrected me. So if I go back to my class and make it with the A, and it needs an A because if I go through to the RiverPickupActor here in my public folder is actually called a RiverPickupActor. And I can press back, and I'm back in my file. Go to Unreal Engine, close all this stuff down now. Close it all down and just go to the compile button. Sorry about that. And now what's it complaining about? It says a RiverActor undeclared identifier. So if we go click through to this, it'll open up Visual Studio 2019 annoyingly. Let's just go back to that and click it again. Did that? Yeah, here it is. It's taken me to the line. It says we're trying to spawn the wrong thing. Well, if I go back to 2022 KO, I can see correctly I haven't updated that one yet. So I've updated that now, and then finally we can go try this again. Good, we are set. Right, so now let's go to our PickupSpawnerActor and define that, and we should now see the ability to pick a blueprint version of it. So I'm going to click that. That's what's going to be spawned. Good. We've already put the spawner actor in here. So if I now go back to Visual Studio, I've got my breakpoint here. And if I press play, it should hit the breakpoint. And this should now no longer be null. It's not. It's filled up with a class. Lovely jubbly. If you're not getting this nice type here, comment in the comments, because I know how to fix that. It's a missing file in Unreal Engine that you can just copy and paste from somewhere, and then you start to see the proper like type ahead. I think it's for f name and f string and all those things. But anyway, as long you should be able to see that there's something in there now. And if I step over and ignore this, I should get into my spawn actor, and you can see all these parameters that I've defined by hovering over. If I untick that and go continue, I should now see 2 coconuts, and there they are. That was lucky. Well, we've made good progress, so I'm going to File, Save All. I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio, and I'm going to go to Git. I'm going to go to so I'm going to go to View and then Git Changes. Drag this out a bit, and you'll be able to see all the stuff that we've done in our files. Well, there's quite a lot there. It doesn't seem quite right, but actually this is the Blender file that I want to back up. So cool. Let's go stage that. Staging. Remember, you put the things that you want to commit onto the stage. So I like this. I select this with Shift. Let's go down to the code part. Go down here. Here's our source folder, and there's a couple of files that I've edited. Sure enough, if I Shift select and go right click and stage, there it's staging those. And this these are the blueprint actors that we've made, and these are parts of the coconut that we brought in. So these are, I think the MS stands for mega scans. I think that's what it stands for. If we collapse all these are all the assets needed for that coconut. Okay, so let's make sure we grab those because they're going to be needed as well. Just collapse them just to kind of show you the process I do. I have to be really careful with what I commit, otherwise you get massive repositories in Git. So I like all this MS presets. We'll stage that. Sounds good. Now what we've got our level, we've got our game mode, all these blueprints, we like those, and we've got our levels. So let's go right click and stage that. And what we've got here, this is content. This is more of those coconut things. I think that's the actual coconut asset. The others were supporting assets, so let's get that in there. Content 1 stage. And we've got this U project. We can actually go see what's changed. If you double click on it, you can see it's just changed the version number here of Unreal Engine from early access to version 5. Okay, that sounds good to me. So if I go and stage that, but we've got one more folder, the temp folder. Temp, I don't like the idea of that. So we'll leave that out, but also it just goes to show we need to add another ignore in our Git Ignore. So let's go and do that. If I go to my Riverside folder, open up this file, I think it's already in. Okay, maybe not. Let's go open up with Notepad. We'll go to the bottom and we'll just make sure that the what was it called? enc underscore temp temp underscore folder. If I save that, you'll notice Sorry, you need that as well. I guess I'm not entirely sure. Oh, there you go. It's disappeared, so no longer going to be able to stage that. Great, and you can see that git ignore change that we just made has come up here. Great, we'll stage that as well, and we'll say main C++ class is made. Commit that. Done. Saved. Okay. So now what we want to do, if I just pin this over here. What's this one? This is the solution folders. We'll just keep that open. Okay. Close everything down. Start from fresh. Okay. So next we want to have, because we've got the spawner, that works. Maybe we should do it so it spawns more than just one item, right? Because that's a possibility. So we go back to our spawner. We get another property here. Basically, just copy this line here. Maybe we should give a little comment here as well. This is the type of blueprint that represents the the type that represents the blueprint we want to spawn instances of. I think that makes sense. And this one is going to be how many should we initially spawn, and we'll call this let's call this seed amount, or no, initial spawn amount. And this will be a integer type because you can't have decimal places for the amount that we're going to spawn. Grab that. And what we want to do is we want to do a loop until we reach 0 to 2 or 3. We want to do a loop and then spawn on that loop, and we'll do that all in begin play. So what we can do is say if there is an actor template, we'll do a for, and we'll start from 0, int I equals 0, whilst I is less than initial spawn amount, then I plus plus. We'll keep iterating over. It's not often I get to do a for loop. Interesting. Do for each loops a lot. And this will start from 0 and it will go to 1, 2. Say we put 2 in there. It's less than that, so it'll spawn 2. It'll not spawn 3. Good. Good so far. And I suppose one more thing is these are probably specific to the actual. They aren't now, but they will be specific to the loop. So let's just drag these down here. And there's one more thing I'd like to try and get a track on here. Is that name? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. That was just for me to look ahead. Okay. Good. So now we've done that. If we go back into Unreal Engine and we sync up our code with this button down here. Now if we go to the spawner actor, there's a new property and it says 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever. Perhaps we can do a little check here. It says something like if initial spawn amount equals 0, then we can give us a warning so we're not left in the dark here. Let's see, initial spawn amount should be greater than 0. Please define the property in the UE editor. So now if we go back and compile that again, we should get a bit of a description going in the output log. Good. Let's just double check that. If I press play, it'll say should be greater than 0. There you go, and that's why nothing spawned. And nothing has spawned. So this is the one that we put in before. If I go and delete that, now press play. Sorry. Now press play. Nothing's been spawned. And if I now go to the content browser and go and put in a number, say 4, compile, save, now we should see 4 coconuts. Well, we see 1, they're all on top of each other, but you can see here in the world outliner that 4 have been spawned. That's good. But now we want to know, we want to like send these coconuts along a spline. So we're going to want our RiverActor, because the RiverActor is going to hold a spline for us. Now I want full logical access to that spline. So what I'm going to do is actually create it in C++ code. We go to my RiverActor.h, and I'm going to put a little description here because I don't want to get lost again. If I do, this serves as a container for all things related to the management of the river and pickups, etc. And under here, another public one. In fact, I'm gonna copy this from the spawner actor. Just copy this line here. Go to my river actor, paste that in, and this one is going to be the spline that represents the river. Now the spline is a spline component in C++. You can go and Google this, but I think it's use spline component. Just go and double check actually right now. You have to like million times a click. It'll get up. There you go. There it is. Use spline component. I mean, a spline component is a spline shape, which yeah, there it is. Just Google it, and this needs to be a pointer. But you'll see that there's nothing being recognized here, and that's because it's not just out of the box by default included in the over embracing header. What that means to say is if you go back to your Firefox, your browser, here it says include. If you just copy that line, it tells you exactly where to go and get that. Don't forget, always above the generated, save that, and if after some time it should say everything's happy. I said after some time it should say it's happy. Come on. Okay, cool. Why are you not happy is a good point though. So maybe the spline component, is that you or is it? Yeah, it is you. Okay, well, what we'll do is we'll give it a name. Let's see if that makes it happier. It's saying use spline component is undefined. Well, it definitely is defined here. We'll see how that goes. What we need to do now is create a spline to be able to play with. So the way to do this is in the constructor. I went Control KO to get back to the C++ file. In the constructor, you want to go create default subobject, all documented again. It's a generic or template class, and it takes a type. I want to create a spline component, and the first variable is give it a name. Okay, fname. It says give it a name, but it also tells you what type the name should be. So it's an fname. Open that up. Okay, it says give me an ename or give me a reference to an fname or all this stuff. Long and the short of it is you can either do text, but I also think you can just do this, and it seems to work as well. Although I don't know how it compiles across other environments, but we'll see. I mean, maybe just do text. I don't know. And what I usually do is I just give it is the name of the thing that I'm going to spawn, right? That is all she wrote, I think. And then I want to assign the created object or space or memory into the variable that we defined here, right? There it is. There is a problem here, so let's just take a look at this. I think I'm missing a bracket. I think it even says that. Yeah, there you go. Good. So that's done. So what we can do now is just compile that and see what happens. Go back to Unreal Engine, compile. And as it's an actor, I must have forgotten that earlier. I'm going to go and find it, RiverActor. There it is. I'm going to call it BP River Actor. I'm going to give it a little open, and you'll see our lovely spline is ready to go. Good. I'm also going to add a static mesh here. Oh, there is a problem here. Yes, that's annoying. Haha, that is annoying. I wish I didn't have to explain this, but the hierarchy system, it always takes the first object it finds that you've created and uses that as the kind of root. The problem with that with splines is that anything under the hierarchy of the below object is then relative, like scale, rotation, all that stuff is relative to the parent type. And I want this static mesh to just be on its own, doodling around, very separate to the spline component. So what you could do is create a kind of dummy object, and it would be like, I don't know, a uScene component, and call it scene component. And then you would say the scene component is the root object and all that stuff. I think that's safe to do now, so let's just do that. So if I just copy that, paste above here, I do a uScene component. Once again, I don't think this is included, so you have to go and just double check where that is. I've gone to Google. I'm going to go scroll down. There should be an include somewhere. There it is. Copy that. Paste. That's all she wrote there. And then what we need to do is then spawn this. Basically using the whole lot of that. This is going to be a uScene component. This is going to be a scene component. Just going to name it. And then what I'll do is I'll say scene component. I know set. Well, okay, let's just wait for type ahead because it's nice to see these things come up. It's set root component as the scene component. And then after this is created, we want to, I think it's set attachment. No, it's get root component, something, set attachment. Setup attachment, there it is. Let me just read this. I think this has a very specific. Okay, well, whatever. And what this takes is, let's see. It's just IntelliSensing again. It says it wants an in-parent and a socket name if there is one, or the in-parent is in-parent. Initialize desired attached parent. Okay, so what I think I need to do is instead this, and then you set up attachment with the root component. So just to demonstrate that with a bit of a drawing. Is that your scene component is a thing, and then your spline component is a thing, and then you're saying, hey, spline component, can you attach to the root component, which is our scene component. And I chose a scene component because the scene component has like no visual thing, it's just a thing. It's like very basic primitive type of component, and it's a good place to start attaching things. This is really cool because if I now go and show you in the editor and compile, you shall see that if I now go into my RiverActor, here's my scene component, there's the attached line component, and hey presto, I can drag that now to the root, and none of these things are relative to each other, but they are relative to the scene component, and no one cares. Cool. The static mesh, what I'm just going to do is just drop in a mesh, right? I think what we'll do is we'll go back to our Quixel Bridge. We'll, I don't know, let's see, I just want something obvious. Oh, I tell you what, I just want something obvious. So maybe don't do a static mesh. We'll do like we'll do a sphere. There you go. Something to see it. Good. Compile, save, and what we'll do is we'll just drag this bad boy into here. And I think what we'll do is we'll kind of move this up a bit like that. And what we can also do is get the camera and we can pin it, right? And we can get a nice little starting position. Let's say this is going to go down like a rapid, so let's do that for now. And we'll position this doozy over here. And then we'll just make note, because it's worth knowing, that it's been dropped outside of this folder. I'd like to move it into there. And I'm also going to create a subfolder called actors. I'm going to put that in there. That in there. I'm going to put this into a cameras folder. I'll put this into a other folder, which is the sphere, the directional light. Well, okay, and the plane. And then we'll put lights as well. You know, whatever you want. I just think it's nice to kind of tidy things up as we go along. Although they do move as you create new levels and stuff. You know, it just gets more complex. But yeah, okay. So that's good. So now we have our river actor that's going to hold the spline, and it certainly does. Let's go and understand that there is the river actor here, and inside the little details panel, there's our scene component. And then here's our spline component. Now we can click on this, and we can actually move this around. You see this, like I've selected just that kind of axis there. I can move it like that. And then I can actually make, you know, pull out, but I can hold Alt and I can make a new point and it'll bend down. And maybe we'll make one more by stretching out with Alt. And you see on my camera now, you can see how that's affecting in the actual scene. Oh, and if I click away, you have to select the main component and then click again or over here to get to your spline component again. Just be aware of that. So something like that will do, I think. Good. So there's our spline. We'll save that. Now what I want to do is tell the spawner about the spline. So we're gonna point the spawner to the spline where it should go. And I think what we'll do actually is rather than just point it to the spline, we'll point it to the entire river actor. Let me just think about this. Or even better, what I'm thinking of here, it really doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I'm just trying to think ahead a little bit, and this is something that comes when you do this a bit more. The river actor will have the spawner in it, and then the spawner will need to spawn them at a certain location, but how would it know? It would have to go up its parent, so that's not a good idea. So okay, so what we'll do is, I'm not sure I like this, and I might change this later, but for now it's fine. So in my spawner, I would have a reference to the river actor, which has the spline, right? And so I'm going to just make another UPROPERTY. I'm going to say this is reference to river actor that provides info on where to spawn the river pickups. And this is going to have a river actor pointer, and we'll call this river actor. And this is no idea what it is, so we'll have to go back up here and we'll include the RiverActor.h. Remembering the river actor is the kind of the all-embracing thing that represents a river, and it should have all the knowledge of where to locate things and position things and how fast things are going, all that stuff. We want a pointer to it so we can get information from it, right? And the information we want from it is its starting location. Well, that's good because we've got locations here. We can actually now go and delve into that. So instead of having a 000 here, what we'll do is we'll go and get into the RiverActor. We'll do pointer to, and we can go and get the spline component, which is the property that we defined here. If I go to the RiverActor, here it is, spline. If I called it Bob, it would come up as Bob. There it is. And then we want to get spline location. There we go. Get world location at distance along spline. That sounds good. Or get world location at spline point. We could say 0. But I actually like the idea of saying I just want the first. I want the distance along the spline of 0 and what's the location at that. And we could also do the rotation because a spline also has rotation that you can do. So we'll just replace this as well. And instead of location, I think there's one called rotation. I mean, let's just look it up. Get world rotation maybe. There you go. At distance along spline, and distance will be 0. Cool. So we're going to spawn these dudes at the initial starting position. So I think just to make things a little bit clearer, let's define out here a starting location of spline, and then we'll pass that in here. This is actually a float, my apologies. So now we've got our location rotation. Actually, that's always the same, so I'm going to bring that out of the for loop because I don't need to calculate that many times. My apologies. And in fact, in fairness, neither is the spawn parameter, so that's fine. And we're using location rotation here. Awesome. One more thing to say is if we haven't selected a RiverActor, then we want to just double check because this will cause a crash if it was null and we try to run it. So we'll also do we'll do this. If RiverActor is true, then run this code. Well, what you can do is Control K and then D will format it for you as well. Control K D, holding Control down. Otherwise, we'll do another log and we'll say RiverActor is null. Please define the property in the UID editor within the world. The difference being is when you're trying to have a reference to something that's been instantiated, i.e. the RiverActor, yeah, you'll see. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just compile that. Now that's compiled, if I go to my RiverActor and then I try to go to my, where is it? No, sorry, if I go to my spawner, there it is. Now if I try to pick something, the RiverActor, that's funny. What would this represent? It wouldn't represent anything but a blueprint that's not placed anywhere, right? But what if I went into the spawner? So if I go back here, there's the spawner here. Maybe I should position this a bit better now. Maybe somewhere close here. Now if I go down here, look, this actually represents something. If I were to pick it, it represents this object in the actual game. So now if I save that, you know what, before I do that, if I reset that value and just play, I want to make sure that we're getting the warning. Yeah, RiverActor is null, good. So now if we go and select our RiverActor, and look, hey presto, it's put the coconuts at that single point, and in fact all 4 of them. let's just go and double check that in, we're debugging here. If we were to go and click here and press play, then we can see the RiverActor is there. Press ignore. We've got the location, the rotation of the RiverActor's spline component. Great. And we can see that the initial spawn amount is 4, so it's going to go over this loop 4 times, right? So that's all good. Continue. So I think the last part of this video, I can't believe it took this long, but I guess it's just explaining stuff. We usually just batter through this stuff. We'll move the coconut along the spine. So the speed of the coconut is a thing for the coconut to know. So let's go to our RiverPickupActor. We'll add a new property. Let's just copy that from here, UPROPERTY. There it is. And we'll give this a speed. Maybe river speed. That sounds good. Yes. Now that's all cool. Now the spawner actor should just spawn it, but it should not do the movement. And so I think the movement of that pickup actor should be dealt with by the actual RiverPickupActor itself. So maybe what we need to understand here is that the pickup actor needs to know where the spline is. It needs to get information about the spline, and that means it needs a reference to the spline. So what I think we'll do is when the spawner spawns the the pickups, right? It'll just set a reference to its RiverActor spline component. This is a bit jumbo. I think I could do this better, but it's totally fine. And you can always rework these things. We've not done a lot of code, and there's no hard decisions being made. Just kind of play with it and then feel it out in your head if it makes sense. But anyway, down to the brass tacks here. If I were to go to my RiverPickupActor, I want to have a reference to the RiverActor. So if we go to my PickupActor and I just copy that over, there's my reference to it. Reference to RiverActor that provides info on where to spawn the river pickups. Well, provides info on where the spline is that we are moving across. Good. And so now we have a pointer to it, but there's nothing in it, right? Let's go and make sure that we include this file. So go up to here, we go include. It's in the actors folder, and hopefully we get a bit of type ahead. Will help me out. Well, apparently not, but we know this should be actors, so we'll just do RiverActor.h. Not sure why that's complaining, to be honest. Actors RiverActor.h. There it is. It knows what it is now. Don't know what that is. That's very strange. Okay, so now our pickup actor has a reference. There you go. It stopped complaining now. It has a reference to the RiverActor, so now we can get information from it. But first, we need to tell it about that RiverActor. So the spawner is going to do that. So if I go here, Control KO again, when we go and spawn the actor, this actually returns a pointer to the actor that it creates, spawn actor. So if we did here, this is going to spawn that. So we go spawned actor equals that, and its type will be the RiverPickupActor pointer. And then we can go into the belly of this, and we can go to the RiverActor. There it is. And we can say that is going to be equal to this this SpawnerActor's RiverActor reference. There it is, and we already know it's set to something. So when it spawns, it's just going to say, hey, the RiverActor is this. I'm not sure this is very good, but this is fine for now. And also, now that we've got that, if we go back to our PickupActor, as it's ticking, we can just say if RiverActor, this one, has something in it, and if it doesn't, we should probably say an error, right? We should say if it does have something, but if it doesn't, then a RiverPickup, this one here on the tick, we can say RiverActor is null. Please define the RiverActor is null. That's fine. Okay, and what we'll do is now we've got the RiverActor, we can actually go into the spline. So let's go and do that. Spline component, there it is, and we can get location at distance along spline. And what we can say is we can track the distance that this specific pickup has traveled by just having another property. So if we copy this, and we can say distance that this pickup has traveled. A distance can be measured in float, distance along spline. Starts at 0, so maybe at the begin play we can say this is 0. I think by default it gets set as 0, so we'll just comment that out for now, maybe even delete it. And then we can just put it in here instead, so distance along spline, and we'll put that in there. And then what we can also then do is we can just plus equals the speed of this river speed, right? So that means it's going to start at 0, and then for every tick we will add the speed to this distance, right? Now we only want to do that if we haven't already reached the end of the spline. So we want to do RiverActor spline location. I think what you can do is get distance or get length or something like that. Get spline length. So now if the spline length is less than, or if it's greater than the current distance along the spline, then we keep adding. Otherwise, we've got to the end. So we've RiverActor has reached the end of the spline. Maybe we can just yeah, that's fine. That's fine for now. That's fine. So it'll just sit at the end. Okay. And here's one more thing: the speed is a constant number, but we need to understand how long it took for the processing of the entire game tick. How long did it take for that whole processing? And then we can multiply that speed that we defined, the constant, by the amount of time that it took. And this scales the speed by how long it's taking your processor to calculate the frame. And we can do that with this beautiful delta time that Unreal Engine gives us, because it knows that this is a thing we need to do. So this scales it by that processing delay. And that means that on a faster or slower computer it doesn't matter, because you've always scaled it by the amount of time that it's taken to do that last frame. Covered everywhere, right? It's just a thing in game coding. So that's done. And now, well, we haven't done with this, so anything with this. So we've got the get location at spline. Distance along spline. Let's just see what else. And it says coordinate space here. There's another thing that's required. So it says e spline coordinate space. E spline coordinate. There it is. This is an enumeration, and it wants world or local coordinates for the location? Well, we want world coordinates, I think. And the reason we want world coordinates is we don't care about something relative. We don't want to. Let me just draw a picture. It's very hard to explain these things. If we have our river actor and our spline, and we want to know the location here, and then we want to set the coconut here equal to this. If we were to get the location relative to this, then this would also need to be relative to this in order for the location to make any sense. So instead of needing to do that, what we say is, well, where is this in respect to the entire world that both things live in, and then this location makes more sense. Go into the comments if that doesn't make sense. I can explain it better. I'm a little bit tired. There's the world coordinates there. So we go and get that. Then we need to keep track of it because this get location actually returns a vector. I've pressed F12 to go through to that method. I go back. Here it is. This is location along a spline equals, and then that's the type there. And then what we'll do is we'll set the location of this thing. So set actor location. There it is. Once again, these methods are coming from the inherited actor that we've got here. They're not things that we define, they're just part of the actor that we inherit from. Set actor location. So if we do have a river actor set by the spawner, then go and get the location at the distance along the spline. And the distance along the spline we're going to increase every iteration, every tick. And then we're going to set the location. If we've gotten too far, then we just announce this warning. We don't increase this anymore. But actually, also that we don't care about setting it, so we can move all this stuff into here. Otherwise, we don't need to set the location anymore. Great. I think that's all done. So if I now go back to Unreal Engine, compile this. I've got so many habits, I'm so sorry, I keep flitching and twitching. It's a bit difficult when I'm a bit tired and I'm trying to focus. Cool. So now we've got a few things. Maybe we need another check here actually. I think it's worth just saying if river actor is that, but we could also say if, let me do that, if the speed equals 0, then we need to just say river speed is 0. Did you mean to set this to something else? Otherwise, it's not going to move anywhere. So, I mean, for example, if I just go and compile that again and try and play it, well, nothing happens, right? Because we didn't set a speed. So there's lots of warnings there, and that's awesome. I'm going to right-click and clear log because it's ugly. We're going to go to our pickup actor. We're going to set a speed for it in our custom variables. We're going to give it a speed of 5. We're going to, that's it. You'll notice a few problems here. I can go and set these values. I don't really want to be able to set them. They're denoted by logic in our classes, and we can make that change later. But for now, ignore it. It's just to do with the UPROPERTY settings. Okay, good. Let's give it a try. Press play, and there they are, moving along. And I tell you what, it's a bit slow for me, so let's go back into the pickup actor and give it a bit of a speed bump. Let's go 15. Press play. There it is, and it should hopefully curve down. These are all 4 of these are moving, by the way. There it is, curving down, and the rotation, if we set it as well, would do its thing. But there you go. There's our rapid river ride. I tell you what, let me just increase that even more. I can't bother to wait again. Let's go double the speed, maybe 50. just for test purposes, I don't really care, so there we go, it's a bit better. To exit out, Shift F1 will allow you to give the mouse back, and then you can eject out of the scene and kind of watch it going. And at the end, it should just stop. And we have reached our destination. And if you were to breakpoint that, that'd be cool as well. So it's almost there. I need to go to bed, but the last part really is to get the click event happening. This is super easy, and then the spawning of the character itself and the movement, which is super easy but just takes a little bit more time. So we'll stop here. It's a good place to stop, and see you in the next video. Cool. How do I stop this thing? Oh yeah, here we go. Bye bye.